John Young-ha was just a simple man running a vacation cottage deep in the woods, right next to a stunning crystal blue lake. Peacefully, Young-ha watched as a variety of people pulled through his guest house, never with any trouble. However, everything changes when a mysterious woman and a young boy show up, and everything starts to go very, very wrong. However, before any of this happens, Young-ha is just a quintessential hardworking guest house owner, committed to running his rental with integrity and avoiding shortcuts. Even when his best friend, Yoon Kye, suggests cutting corners for quicker profits, Young-ha stubbornly insists on doing things the right way. At the same time, we meet a policewoman named Yoon Bo-min, who's taking a nostalgic trip back to her old police station and dropping off a box of her belongings from 20 years ago, including a photo of her first case. Skipping back in time, we see that Yoon Bo-min's first case involved a man named Sang-jun, a former vacation motel owner from 2001, whose life seems to eerily mirror Young-ha's. But back to the present, running into a mysterious woman who we come to learn is named Sung-ah and her child, Si-hyun, on the side of the road. Young-ha invites them to come and stay at his rental. But right from the beginning, there is something strange about Sung-ah, who has a curious hatred of water and Si-hyun's toy dog, which Young-ha kindly repairs. This creepy feeling only gets worse and worse when Sung-ah asks to use the record player in the lounge that had once belonged to Young-ha's late wife. When the Bobby Bland record starts to play, it triggers a sudden rainstorm, because of course, nothing says bad omen like an unexpected downpour. Flashing back to 2001, we see Sang-jun welcome a guest into his motel, which is called the Lakeview Motel. It's also raining cats and dogs outside. That same night, Bo-man gets a call. It's from Sang-jun's wife. She has just found a woman cut into pieces in the man's bed. It turns out that the man that Sang-jun had welcomed in had been a serial killer named Ji-hwang Cheol this whole time. Back in the present, the next morning, Young-ha finds that not only have Sung-ah and Si-hyun left, but his record player is soaked in blood. Having a full-blown panic attack, Young-ha races out of the building like someone who has just seen a ghost. Going back to the day before, we see Si-hyun splashing around in the rain, blissfully unaware that his mother, or at least the woman he has come with, has the air of someone who's just had a very bad day, or maybe a very bad decade. After dinner, during which we see her feed Si-hyun a plate of spaghetti coated in a disturbing red sauce, we see Sung-ah play the bloodied Bobby Bland record, calmly distracted from the fact that she is covered in blood from head to toe. Did Sung-ah kill Si-hyun? Having rushed out of his house the next morning, Young-ha runs into Bo-min, now the town's police captain, who notices the blood on Young-ha's fingers from the record player. Young-ha, caught between wanting to get everything off his chest about Sung-ah and keeping his secrets under wraps, decides to keep it quiet, even from Young Kye. This strategy might be better suited for a spy movie, but here it mostly leads to a lot of awkward and nervous glances. The scene shifts back to 2001, where the aftermath of the motel murder is so dramatic it could have its own soundtrack. Young Bo-min, new to the detective gig, watches Yoon-kyung, Sang-jun's wife, collapse as the dead body is carted away. Meanwhile, Sang-jun himself is overwhelmed with guilt for unknowingly helping the killer, Hyang-chol, who's soon arrested, what Sang-jun would give to go back in time and just close the motel that night. Fast forward to the present, and Young-ha, going into Sung-ah's room, finds a bleach scent so strong it could rival a chemical factory. His suspicions are only heightened by the dashcam footage from Young Che's car, which shows something alarming. Unfortunately, all we get to see is Young-ha's horrified expression, like he's just watched a horror movie without the benefit of cinema popcorn. After watching the dashcam video, Young-ha decides to carry on like normal. However, he is interrupted by Bo-min, who arrives just in time to sense that something is off, though she opts to keep her detective instincts on a low. After she leaves, Young-ha goes full crime scene makeover mode, cleaning the vinyl, locking the door to the basement, burning the towels, and scrubbing the floor until it's brand new. The episode then flips back to 2001 once again, where the motel's unfortunate moniker, Murder Motel, is doing wonders for its popularity, and the business is on the verge of closing. Both Sang-jun and Eun-kyung are breaking down under the stress of having to work several jobs. Eventually, Sang-jun snaps and smashes everything in the motel before eventually closing the place down. Back to Young-ha, having tried his best to forget everything that happened with Sang-ah all those months ago. Imagine his surprise when, One afternoon, he is met with Sang-a's red car pulling down the driveway, the very night that he is planning to meet his future brother and sister-in-law for the first time, because nothing says surprise like a monster from your past showing up unannounced. Back in the 2000s, Gi-ho, Sung-joon's young son, makes a grand entrance at the bully's room, weighed down by a bag of bottles that he had clearly been ordered to bring. Despite having brought the booze, he's met with mockery and is branded as a loser, lest we all forget how absolutely torturous it is to be a teenager. Never mind a teen who is being haunted by some pretty morbid rumors. Fast forward to the present, and Sung-a, rolling up in her Jeep, asks to stay the night. Just as he is about to refuse, Young-ha's daughter, Wai Se-yeon, shows up and insists she stays, helplessly unaware that she is making a massive mistake. After a bit of reluctant negotiation, Young-ha agrees to let Sung-a stay. That night, Young-ha can't focus on Wai Se-yeon, her partner, Jisoo, or his parents, instead constantly anxiously checking his watch. Similarly, Sung-a is also out of it. For one, she no longer hates water, and she even asks to use the vinyl player again, adding a touch of suspense, or maybe just deja vu to the evening. Either way, one thing is for sure, Sung-a knows that he is hiding her secret. In the 2000s timeline, Eun-kyung is spiraling under her alcoholism and PTSD from finding the body in the room. At the same time, her deteriorating relationship with Sung-joon leads them to sell the Lakeview Motel, even though they're essentially giving it away at a loss. Meanwhile, Eun-kyung's attempt to quit drinking takes a nosedive when she finds out that Gi-ho had sneaked out her alcohol and sleeping pills to the bullies, which eventually leads to an emergency when one of the kids takes both together and passes out. Plus, Sang-joon's last-ditch effort to salvage the motel goes up in smoke when he learns the developer is cozy with the student who passed out family, sealing the motel's fate. Later, Bo-min finds Eun-kyung's lifeless body at the motel, accompanied by a bottle of soju, pills, and a note. Because who doesn't love a tragic twist to their cocktail? Meanwhile, after Sung-a drugs Young-ha with the same tomato sauce that she fed Si-hyun, Young-ha manages to wake up and stumble to the police station, determined to put a stop to the craziness. However, as he steps inside, putting his hand in his pocket, Young-ha finds a chilling note with a picture of his daughter circled in red. Feeling like he has lost everything, his hotel, and even his wife, Sang-joon goes to pay a visit to Hyang Cheol in prison, trying to get some answers. Hyang Cheol, ever the philosophical conversationalist, throws a curveball back at Sang-joon by asking why he was hanging out on a bridge that night. According to Hyang Cheol, Sang-joon had simply been collateral damage. Leaving the prison, Sang-joon thanks Bo-min for helping him see the killer one last time. Meanwhile, Bo-min is diving into the world of murder investigations with the enthusiasm of someone who's just found their new favorite buzz. Her colleagues have dubbed her as though she is in a game of tag. She's hooked on the adrenaline rush, nothing more romantic than having a secret crush on danger. In the present, Young-ha is in full-on panic mode, convinced that his daughter Wai Se-yeon is in imminent danger. Back at the guest house, determined to do something to even just learn Sung-a's name, which he doesn't even know as the previous booking was made under Si-hyun's name. Young-ha obsessively zeroes in on Sung-a's laptop, convinced it holds the key to all his problems. But his quest to crack the laptop ends up being a bust. Returning to the motel after a computer repairman tells him that he can't crack the password without wiping the computer clean, Young-ha finds a white truck, unloading plants, and ripped art portraits by the pool. His obsession with Sung-a's secrets reaches a fever pitch when he discovers medicine in her car. After finding her instructing some men to get rid of his furniture, furious, Young-ha goes Sung-a in the pool and gives her a surprise of his own by choking her. Although she survives, Sung-a's ever-calm facade starts to show cracks. Here we see the dashcam video that Young-ha had found after Sung-a's very first visit. She had left alone. We even find out that Young-ha had discovered some bloodstains while cleaning. So did he really cover up her crimes knowingly? During a high-stakes dinner, Sung-a dismisses Young-ha's evidence like it's nothing, and even goes as far as to hint that his silence could make him an accomplice. However, later, when Sung-a realizes that Young-ha has recorded their conversation and is headed to the station, Sung-a freaks out and deliberately slams into him with her red car. One thing about Sung-a, subtlety isn't in her expertise.
As Bo-min hears the news that Hyang Cheol's ghostwriter, Mr. Kim, has committed suicide, and what's more, Hyang Cheol's still safely behind bars. So clearly, he can't be the one behind it this time. Naturally, Bo-min gets that investigative itch that we know all too well at this point, and dives right into the chaos, tying the incident back to the Lakeview Motel. As for Young-ha, things have just gotten a lot messier, as Sung-ga rams her red car into him in the middle of the street, starting what might just be the pettiest turf war over a motel in history. Heading home after the accident and the hospital, Young-ha finds that Sung-ga has gotten rid of the dashcam footage and the recording. He's back to square one, now driving a blue sports car. Sung-ga, hoping that Young-ha will simply hand her the guest house, is surprised when a family shows up to rent out the place. Without any proof of her booking, when the police show up, Sung-ga is forced to move out of her room and into one of the other parts of the house. Sung-ga is pissed off. Young-ha is trying to push her out. As more guests keep showing up and distracting Sung-ga from her artwork, Young-ha's plan to turn Sung-ga into the motel's resident Uni succeeds in pushing her to the edge. And no, not metaphorically. The guests, the noise, the smashed windows, it's all driving her nuts. When police officer Kim Seon-tae, who has a huge crush on Sung-ga, although she can't stand him, despite flirting with him to his face, shows up at the rental with his friends. Sung-ga tries to convince Young-ha to share the place with her. Young-ha can have half of the place for his rental, and she'll take the other half for her painting. Young-ha responds by choking her. In reaction, Sung-ga sleeps with Seon-tae in Young-ha's bed. Seeing them in his bed, Young-ha absolutely loses it, like full-on cartoon steam out of ears mode, leading Seon-tae to arrest him before things get even weirder, especially because Sung-ga has led Seon-tae to believe that Young-ha might be abusing her. At the station, Young-ha again runs into Bo-min. She knows there is something odd going on at his rental. What could it be? Meanwhile, Seon-tae's evening is not going much better. Heading back to Sung-ga, he ends up being chased by her flashy new blue sports car through the cornfield. Later, while sitting in her mud-splattered car, Sung-ga calls Young-ha, and he agrees to sell her the property. What does he have planned this time? Surely he's not just going to let her have the place. And let's not forget about Sang-jun and his family. In another flashback, we see that Gi-ho had actually seen Hyang Cheol the night that he'd murdered that woman. Running into each other on the steps, Hyang Cheol, ever the gentleman, tells Gi-ho to disappear and act like a ghost before giving the young Ji-ho his black cap. Gi-ho, rattled to his core, takes off into the rain, clutching Hyang Cheol's hat like a souvenir he never wanted. Arriving back home, Ji-ho hides the cap under his bed, haunted by what he has seen. Fast forward, and Gi-ho, now an adult, has got a new hobby, obsessing over Hyang Cheol. Armed with a rifle and a personal vendetta, Ji-ho spends his time practicing his aim at Sang-jun's friend Jung-doo's shopping center. Having trauma bonded, Jung-doo's in on the Hyang Cheol hate club too. They have to make him pay. Running into Young-ha, who has broken into Gi-ho's hideout, Ji-ho knocks him down and pulls a gun on him. But before we can find out what Young-ha is doing in Ji-ho's room, we see Young-ha waking up in the hospital. He's paranoid that his rental is headed for disaster, a la Motel Lakeview. If the news about what happened to Si-haeon comes out, unable to get what happened to the Lakeview Motel out of his head, Young-ha decides to go and visit the place for himself and figure out if selling to Sung-ga is his best escape route before his life deteriorates, like what happened to Sang-jun and his family. He also goes to visit Sang-jun, who is living in a retirement home but believes that he's still at the motel. Explaining the scenario that he's in to Sang-jun, Sang-jun tells Young-ha not to trust anyone, but if he needs to kill someone, he knows a guy, clearly referring to Gi-ho, though it's crazy that Sang-jun can't even recognize his own son. You see, just when you think you're catching up with the chaos, we learn that Gi-ho is actually on a mission to shoot Hyang Cheol. Determined to take his one chance, Gi-ho and Jung-doo create the perfect setup. However, when the time comes, Gi-ho misses. Rushing to enact Plan B, Ji-ho races to Hwang Cheol and gets his shot. Literally. With Hwang Cheol dead, Ji-ho returns to his room and lets Young-ha go after he explains that he isn't a cop. However, as Young-ha walks away, he gets a strange feeling and rushes back just in time to stop Gi-ho from shooting himself. Together, the two of them torch the letters Hwang Cheol had written to the ghostwriter, and Young-ha promises to give Gi-ho an alibi for where he was that afternoon. In exchange, Gi-ho gives Young-ha the gun and Hwang Cheol's cap, which Young-ha puts on as he heads back to the rental house. It's time for Sung-ga to meet her maker. Meanwhile, Sunga is pulling up to the art gallery for her exhibition, the mud still fresh on her car. Things get even more bizarre when Jae-sik, her estranged husband fresh out of prison, shows up. Sunga's less than thrilled to see him, and their reunion quickly turns into a full-blown fight and chase. Because, of course, the best way to settle unresolved issues is by literally running from them through a parking lot. Jae-sik accuses Sunga of killing his son Si Haeyeon. Sunga plays the "I don't know what you're talking about" card, but eventually admits the truth. It turns out that Sunga wasn't Si Haeyeon's biological mom, but had taken on that role when she married Jae-sik. She'd resented and hated Si Hyun for it. After a tussle, Jae-sik knocks her out cold. Waking up, Sunga does what anyone would do and casually drives a van straight into the middle of an exhibition. You know, normal artist behavior. As if things couldn't get any crazier. When Sunga arrives back home, she goes full crazy, even stabbing Yoon Kye in the back when he butts heads with her. After picking up some suspicious supplies at the supermarket, with Bo-min conveniently spotting her, of course, Sunga ties Yoon Kye up in the basement. When Uiseon, having received a concerning phone call about her father, eventually shows up, she's immediately pulled into Sunga's web of lies as Sunga tries to convince her that she and Young-ha work together to take Si-hyun out. Of course, Uiseon doesn't believe this. Who would? Eventually, Uiseon and Sunga end up fighting, and the next time we see either of them, Sunga has her red suitcase with her. By the time Young-ha arrives, he sends Yoon Kye to the hospital before chasing Sunga with an axe. At this point, Sunga is talking about how she already has flight tickets out of Korea, plus, according to Sunga, Uiseon is safe. If he can help her one last time, then he'll never have to see her again. But Young-ha isn't buying it. He sets her up, and with the help of Bo-min, the police close in. Sunga ends up getting arrested for assaulting Yoon Kye. However, despite the police finding Uiseon alive, Young-ha learns that not only did Sunga stab his daughter, but she had been pregnant, and the hospital might have to abort the baby to save Uiseon's life. Because, of course, why wouldn't things get worse? With Sunga at the police station, it might seem like we're in the clear, but don't worry, we're only getting started. Out of the station in a couple of hours thanks to her dad's bougie lawyer, Sunga is unaware that her interview with Bo-min gave the cop exactly the clue that she needed. Basically, when Bo-min mentioned that Sunga might have left dead bodies in the cornfield, Sunga's face twitched ever so slightly. Not exactly a poker face. That's all Bo-min needed to send a search party scrambling through the fields. Of course, Bo-min's boss isn't thrilled about her taking matters into her own hands, but eventually, the chief reluctantly gives the go-ahead, and soon enough, the search party uncovers Seon-tae's body, not Si Haeyeon's, hacked up among the corn stalks. Meanwhile, Sunga isn't letting the police snooping around ruin her day. No, she's at the laundromat burning all of her evidence, as well as the whole building, because why not? But it doesn't matter, because back at the guest house, Jae-sik finds Sunga, and he picks up Gi-ho's gun. True to form, she just taunts him, throwing Young-ha under the bus while she's at it. Classic. Calling her father, Song-ae finds out that he had found her laptop, on which were some pretty disturbing photos of her posing in a bathroom doused in Si Haeyeon's blood. She also finds out that, in response, her father had sent Jae-sik to the rental, basically permitting him to kill Sung-ah. Things reach a violent crescendo as Jae-sik finally shoots Sung-ah, not once but twice. With her final breath, Sung-ah tries to escape, only to be shot again by Jae-sik through the head before falling into the pool. By the end, with Bo-min, who showed up in the middle of the gunfire, shot in the shoulder, and Sung-ah dead, Young-ha watches her lifeless body floating in the pool. With Sung-ah gone, Young-ha seemingly tries to move on from the nightmare. As for Bo-min, recognizing the gun that killed Sung-ah as the same one that killed Hyang Cheol, she goes to visit Gi-ho, but recognizing Gi-ho as another frog who just got hit by a carelessly thrown stone, she doesn't take her hunch about Gi-ho further. In the end, Uiseon gives birth, Young-ha decides to sell the property, and Gi-ho reaches out to Young-ha, spotting a kindred spirit in the man. Randomly noticing Si Haeyeon's toy dog one day, Young-ha realizes that he had helped Sung-ae get away with what she'd done by staying quiet. And with that, the movie ends. We hope you enjoyed the video. Watch the next recaps on the screen, and don't forget to subscribe for more amazing recaps. See you in the next one.